you going? So today on BKRsport, we're going to be starting up a new series here where I'm going to go through each and every single one of the potential teams that could be becoming the 18th NRL team in the next couple of years, 25, 26, 27. I'm not too sure. I'm pretty certain they're looking more towards the 26, 27 kind of area, simply because of what we've just seen with the Dolphins, right? They weren't given enough time. 1 year is just not long enough of a time to, build a franchise, build a roster, build everything, right? You need a couple of years. Look at Tasmania in the AFL. They've given them, I think, 2027 or 28 is when they'll be coming into the competition. And that's a lot more viable. It's not rushed. It's not like they want to get them in now just to make a quick buck now, right? Which is what I guess the Dolphins sort of felt like. I do agree with the Dolphins coming in. I think that was fine. I think they probably should have stuck with Redcliffe or Sunshine Coast or whatnot. They don't really have a target area now, and that fad will die down pretty quickly because no one can actually... There's no real tribalism behind it. You know what I'm saying? Like with the Dolphins, there's no real tribalism behind, I'm from here, this team represents me, and I don't really feel that people will be able to associate with that team long term unless they can find a catchment area that they want to focus on. It's all well and good saying, oh, this team technically represents here until here, like, Redcliffe until up north, the Sunshine Coast area, right? But there's no factual evidence to prove that or to say that, right? So you need to have something in your name to represent where you're from, in my personal opinion. And that is actually going to roll into today's video, which is the Papua New Guinea potential franchise coming into the NRL in 26-27, right? Now, this is the biggest one, I would say. I'd say that this is the one that people have been talking about the longest. We've probably had more relatively official word about this one than any of the others, based on the fact that, Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister of Australia, is really pushing the Papua New Guinea franchise to become the next NRL team. That obviously is very political minded. It's not really thinking about the growth of the NRL per se. It's not thinking anything beneficial to the game. It's just thinking politically minded. And he's the Prime Minister, so of course he's going to think that way. But there is a lot of negatives that are associated that have nothing to do with, the political world that could negatively impact our game in general. Now, these videos, guys, they're just my opinion, right? So I want you guys to comment in the comment section what your thoughts are. Are they viable? Is it something that you would like to see? Please be unbiased as well. Please have a listen to maybe another perspective and then kind of have your say, because there are things you need to take into account. Because the major pro here, right? The major pro with Papua New Guinea is their fans. And the fact that this country, its national sport is rugby league. They love rugby league. They're arguably more passionate than 99% of rugby league fans in Australia, to be fair. And they're obsessed with this sport. They are obsessed with this sport. If you want to go and have a look at some pretty dark stats, there are some pretty dark things that happen during Origin and during games when losing teams and go up against and rivalries and all that type of stuff, right? So the fact of the matter is that this is the most passionate country, in my opinion, for the sport of rugby league. And that is something that everybody wants. Everyone wants the game to grow in regards to the excitement, in regards to, fans going wild for their team. They want to see a better product, and that's entertaining, right? It's very entertaining to see fans going crazy, really get behind that team, the atmosphere. You want to be a part of a great atmosphere, and Papua New Guinea would provide that. Might be a little bit dangerous for the away fans, but Papua New Guinea would provide a good atmosphere. But I will get into a negative in regards to that in just a few moments. So the pro is definitely the passionate fans and how much they would bring to the growth of this game as a country, and how much they absolutely adore the sport of rugby league. Absolutely. Now, a negative to go alongside that, right, in regards to the atmosphere and in regards to the passion, is that we've actually just seen as well in the most recent Pacific Nations Bowl, not the Cup, the Bowl, where the fans didn't get out in numbers as we thought they would, right? Maybe the last game they started trickling in the second half and whatnot, but I did take a note whilst I was doing my live streams that it did look a lot more emptier than you would expect, right? Because for so many years, every time Papua New Guinea would play in the international game at home, they would sell out the ground. It would be insane. Like the atmosphere at the 2017 World Cup when Papua New Guinea had their games was amazing. And when you would see other games get taken there, you would see sold out crowds. But in this Pacific Nations Bowl, it didn't really happen. Now, I know they were playing Fiji, which is their rival effectively, and then the Cook Islands, but it just didn't have that same vibe and that same crowd until the later stages of the second half, where people started to hear word that Papua New Guinea were winning and then they would come. So that's a concern for me, because if you need to rely upon the team winning to get the crowds in, you'll always get a crowd, but not like the big crowds, which is what we need from them and expect from them. If you need to rely on them winning, they're not going to win for a few years. You know, this team would come in and would need time to build. They would need years to build their team to be a competitive team, right? They've won a Queensland Cup before, but there was a big step between playing the Burleigh Bears and the Townsville Blackhawks and the Redcliffe Dolphins in the Q Cup, winning Manly Seagulls, to taking on the Melbourne Storm, to taking on the Sydney Roosters, to taking on the mighty Gold Coast Titans. You see my point though, right? Is that I really do get concerned that they need to see their team successful for them to actually come out of the woodwork, unless they're seeing the big time star players. Now, what I'm going to translate that into as well is that, yes, there is a negative here as well, in that this is a big portion of what people say, who's going to want to go there. Cameron Smith, when he was there, he wasn't going to be going to Papua New Guinea. But let's talk about the players from today. Reece Walsh, he's not going to move to Papua New Guinea. Nathan Cleary, not going to move to Papua New Guinea. All these big-time players, right? Latrell Mitchell, all these big-time players, not going to be going to Papua New Guinea. So how do they find the talent? Now, the pro that comes along with this is that you do want to see Papua New Guinea build within. Right? We know they've got talent there. We know they're a tough bunch, and we know they can provide some good players. So we kind of would like to see them develop their own, right? Rather than seeing them taking talents from Sydney or Brisbane or New Zealand or, you know, Melbourne or whatnot, right? So for me, it's more about, if Papua New Guinea had a team, you would want to see them develop their talent from within, which does obviously need the grassroots to be, you know, financially supported. We'll get into the financials in a second, but it really does mean that Papua New Guinea would have to focus internally rather than externally. And that can be classed as a negative because you're not going to see those big-time star players come back, but you will see, I guess Justin Olam will be too old by then, but you would see those type of guys, right? Like a Justin Olam, like an Alex Johnston. All these guys would probably shift up to Papua New Guinea, unless they're from that area, as in like, say, Justin Olam with Melbourne, right? If he was from Melbourne, I know Justin Olam's different, but if he was from Melbourne, then maybe he might not actually go up there. He's just got that cultural heritage link, right? But a lot of those Papua New Guinean players would want to be a part of that because they're treated like gods in that country, man. They are treated like gods. Look at how they reacted to all the players when we had that Pacific Nations Bowl. So, yes, that pro and con, no big-time star players would probably go up there besides the heritage. And then the pro is that we probably will get to see Papua New Guinea develop as a nation, as an actual nation in rugby league, and we would start to see a lot more financially supported grassroots and structure to actually benefit the country and the team overall internally. Now, obviously, I just mentioned the financials. I think we should get into the financials. The con here is that I don't think they're financially viable. I'm sorry, Papua New Guinea fans, but I don't think it's financially viable for you to sustain a team in the NRL. I don't think it's financially viable for the fans to support their team week in, week out, buy merchandise, you know. I don't think that memberships, all these kind of things, right? I don't think that and this is with all due respect, right? Because I'm not trying to disrespect anybody. I'm just providing an opinion. I don't think the country of Papua New Guinea has enough money itself to financially support the team, right? And this is why Anthony Albanese has come in, because he knows that without the Australian government's help, Papua New Guinea probably will never financially be right. I'll just straight up say it. They'll never be financially right. They'll never be able to financially support grassroots, the structure of the organisation, and the ongoing financial requirement to have a team in the game. So, politically speaking, Albanese thinks that's good for us, and then he thinks, well, that's good for them because they love rugby league and that will entrench us, which is correct. Smart thinking. It is smart thinking. But you're also then asking the taxpayers of Australia to effectively fund the rugby league in Papua New Guinea. You know, there's an issue there because I don't think that most people will want to, from Australia, fund another country more than they already see countries, and we're not going to talk too politically here, but obviously politics, you're seeing taxpayer money going all over the place, right? Now you're just adding on to that with a rugby league team in Papua New Guinea. So for me, financially, I just don't see it working unless the government came in, and would have to be ongoing support too. Like, it's not like this is just a once-off payment. It would have to be ongoing support. I just don't see it working. And again, like I said, if the team's not winning and they're losing week after week after week, and they're struggling, like, you know, say West Tigers, their fans may not come out, and probably won't come out, because we've just seen the Pacific Nations Bowl against Fiji and Cook Islands, where it just wasn't really the crowd that we were expecting. And it wasn't what we thought after that 2017 World Cup and previous games in the country. Do the fans have enough money to get to every single game? Is there enough financial gain within the population to buy jerseys, merchandise, which is the same thing, I don't know why I said that, multiple, memberships, individual tickets, like anything. And then on a regular basis, not just 3 times a year, 1 time a year, on a regular basis. I don't know. Please, if you're Papua New Guinean, please comment that below. Let me know your thoughts. A thing that could benefit this, though, is obviously the North Sydney Bears, who've said that they want to merge with a Pacifica team. And the Pacifica team has been kind of mentioned in regards to Papua New Guinea, where they could play out of Cairns, and it represents like Papua New Guinea, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, right? And Tonga and Samoa and Nuku'alofa and Apia, they do have stadiums of like 10, 15,000, 10, 12,000, right? Nothing spectacular. Fiji, ANZ Stadium in Suva is quite big, and Lautoka is sizable. Singatoka, not too much. Nandi is incredibly small, right? So I would say that actually Fiji has the best all-round grounds, but you'd ideally want to see a Papua New Guinea team represent Port Moresby, because you want that tribalism, man. You want those regulars, you want those members, you want those people feeling like this is their team. Because if you play them out of Cairns will feel like it's their team. Or you play them out of Fiji will think it's their team. Papua New Guinea, Samoa, Tonga, right? So although you can like try and share all around, and I don't mind it, the place that gets the most games will feel like it's more their team, and the place that gets the least games will probably support them, but won't feel like it culturally, specifically, represents their home and their community. So I don't like the idea of the North Sydney Bears coming in, because that will just add in Sydney. And then you've got Papua New Guinea and Sydney, and are you saying they're playing Port Moresby and North Sydney? Or are you saying they're playing Cairns and North Sydney? Or what's happening here? Right? There's so many different kind of aspects that go into it, and you think, I don't think that's going to work. You know, and we all know my thoughts about the North Sydney Bears franchise and organisation after their dealings with the Gold Coast Titans in the 2010s. Hate that scumbag organisation. Fans, great. Organisation, scumbags. But the fact of the matter is that I believe for this team to be a success, if you can fix everything else prior to what I've said, you need to have them based out of one ground for their home games, or at maximum 2. Like you see with the Tigers at Leichhardt and Campbelltown, the Dragons with Wollongong and Kogarah. Is there any other teams that really have 2 grounds? Not really. New Zealand still is just Mount Smart, really. Like, they take a couple games here and there to Wellington, the Likes, Christchurch, but at the end of the day, it's Mount Smart. It's Auckland. I guess the Dolphins is a little bit similar, but not really. Like, they played at KO Stadium in Redcliffe, and then they also played at Suncorp. But realistically speaking, I wouldn't really class that along the likes of the Dragons, the Tigers, and whatnot. So, yeah, my point here is that if the Papua New Guinea team is going to work, play them out of Port Moresby. I think that's the only way to make it make sense. If you're not playing them out of Port Moresby, then they're not Papua New Guinea. If you play them out of Cairns, then they're Cairns. If you're playing them out of Fiji, then they're Fiji. How are you going to convince the people of Papua New Guinea that that's their team if they can't even watch them live, or maybe watch them once or twice a year, while Cairns is getting to watch them 8 or 9 times a year with 1 game of Magic Round? It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. So for me, if they're going to come in, you have to play them out of Port Moresby. But then that comes with all that financial restrictions that we were talking about before, and also the amount of support they can generate on a week-to-week basis. I'm not going to go on for too much longer here, but I want to provide a big positive that I don't really see many people talking about, and that is the talent that is not being taken away when you're creating a team. If you're bringing in a Western Coast or Brisbane team, they're taking more talent away from Queensland, as in the Broncos, as in the Dolphins, as in the Cowboys, and as in the Titans, right? And just in general, you're taking more of the talent away and pillaging from other clubs, right? Which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but I'm just saying that it does weaken the talent pool overall because there is another player in the mix, right? Look at the Broncos. They have not won a premiership since the Titans came in and took some of the talent in that southeast Queensland area. Now the Dolphins are in and they're talking about a Western Corridor Brisbane team, right? So it dwindles it down and teams don't have a plethora of options anymore, right? So that is actually a negative. That is a negative, right? And you've got Sydney where there's just millions of teams. You know, you've got 150 million teams there. 150 million teams. And also, by the way, Brisbane also gets pillaged from the Storm. And that's why Victoria has always been known as like Queensland, because they got Cameron Smith, Billy Slater, Cooper Cronk, who else was there? They've had these guys, right? Greg Inglis. All these guys came from like North Devils in Brisbane, near the airport. Right? So that's the fact of the matter is that pillaging talent. And if you bring Papua New Guinea in, they're taken from their own. They're not looking. They might get a feeder club in like Cairns, for example. They may get a feeder club in North Queensland somewhere, which may take a little bit away from the Cowboys, but not too much. So ultimately, it's a benefit that the complaints around people saying, oh, the talent pool is weaker because there's more teams in now. We can't add more teams in because the talent pool isn't large enough. Well, guess what? Out in Papua New Guinea, they're taking from their own. No one's actually really going into Papua New Guinea to look for talent. They will specifically look for talent in their own country. And then maybe they might kind of diversify into the islands as well because they understand that island culture. I don't know. But it's a benefit that a team that isn't from Brisbane or from Sydney, there's no use in saying this, but from Canberra, like Melbourne, and there is a potential for a second Melbourne team people have been talking about. I don't think that's even remotely, but we'll get into that one later. But it is a benefit that they can take from their own and not really pillage from others. Overall here, my final say, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work. Yet, anyway. I think that there are other priorities that we should look at before we move to Papua New Guinea. I think that on a passionate fan level, you guys are the best in the game. Papua New Guinea is the best in the game for passionate fan level. And that's come from me, right? Crazy man, the drums at Titans games. Right? I believe that Papua New Guinea is the most passionate. But financially speaking, this is a business. And I don't think business-wise, they will be able to sustain themselves for a long time. And I don't think the success will come even remotely soon enough that they need to feel like it is a viable product. I think it will take a long, long time to get there. So unfortunately, I'm going to say a likelihood rating would probably be a 7 out of 10. A 7 out of 10, maybe 6.5, 7. I think a likelihood rating would be a 6.5 to 7 because there is support for it and there is a fan base there, but the negatives come from the financials and from the fact they don't really know what they want to do, if they want to go multiple areas or just Papua New Guinea. That's my personal viewpoint, guys. Please comment below your thoughts. I appreciate you guys. I hope no one took offense to anything that has been said in this video because it's just an opinion. It is just, supporting the game and trying to figure out who would be the best team to come in as the 18th NRL team. Much love to everybody out there. Obviously, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Alright, guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.